It was an early noon, and suddenly there was a knock on the front door. When Yang opened it, she was surprised to see her younger half-sister, Ruby Rose, standing there. She smiled and asked her sister what brought her here. And Ruby said that she wanted to ask her sister if she wanted to be her sparring partner today. Originally, she was supposed to be with a friend as a sparring partner, but the friend had to cancel the plan since they had to do something else with the family, so Ruby came to ask her older sister, and Yang still smiled and said that she didn't mind to be the sparring partner for her sister. So both of them left Yang's place and went to the park nearby to do the sparring matches. They sparred for about 3 hours at most. After 3 hours, Yang told her sister it was probably best to take a break from now and continue another day, because it was not a good idea to just continue to practice sparring matches until they get too tired. Ruby actually agreed on that. And since Yang had told her sister that she can come by at any time if she wanted to have a sparring match with her, so Ruby said goodbye to her sister and she left. But Yang, she remained at the spot for a little bit longer just to relax a little bit after that intense sparring match with her youngest sister. As she was sitting down just to relax, suddenly she was startled by this loud sound, and before she can even turn around, she saw even from a corner of her eyes, a bright flash of light happened. She didn't know exactly what happened, but as she would just turn around, she didn't see anything else. She didn't hear anything else, like suddenly it became so silent quiet. But she was brave enough, so she stood up, walked to the place where she heard the sound came from. But the only thing is, she had no idea what to find or expect there. But she had her gauntlets up and ready to be prepared for a battle if they would come to that. But knowing how she was exhausted after that intense training with her sister, but she would not hesitate to fight if it came to that. But when she came to a small open place, she saw this being or this small animal on the ground, unconscious. And a quick look, it was a cat. But it was not a typical cat that she had seen before. This was a small humanoid cat being or an animal. But another thing is, it was wearing shoes and clothes. She had never seen anything like it before, so she really had no idea what to expect. But suddenly this animal opened its eyes and just sat up and looked at her. Yang prepared to attack, but this animal looked at her and looked scared and suddenly quick to stand up and suddenly use its own hands as like weapons, but then suddenly flames of fire appeared in both hands. And Yang was quite surprised. She had never even heard of any animal like this, no matter what type of animal had this type of powers or any sort of power at all. She didn't ask her, this animal, if she could understand her. The animal nodded and said that she did understand her. She asked her what her name was. She said her name was Blaze the cat, or just Blaze. And she asked the same thing, and she said her name was Yang. And after only they've been staring at each other for only brief seconds, it would have felt like an eternity. They both stopped, and Blaze stopped her fire in lower hands and asked her where she were, and where on part of Mobius that she is located. But Yang looked quite surprised, or at least more as curious and a little bit stunned, more all at the same time. She asked what she meant by Mobius. This is a world called Remnant. She never really heard of a place called Mobius or East. And when she asked about anything, Yang was actually still a bit surprised when she asked her about this fire powers of hers. Blaze said that was her natural powers that she was born with. Anyone in her family was born with these fire powers. Yang was actually a bit surprised, but then she asked, where is she from? Well, Blaze had a little bit hard to explain, but she was from another dimension called Solar Dimension. And that was one place that even Yang had never heard of. But after being just talking for only a brief moment, Yang then suggested that they would go back to her place so they can have more proper conversation, more private. Blaze nodded and followed after her. There, she made some tea for both of them, and they should start talking about all kinds of things they had been up to. But it was still something about Blaze that Yang couldn't explain. After all, this unique fire powers of Blaze was very unusual. But after they just been talking for after a while though, Blaze explained that this power had been in her family for generations. And she explained how she assumed that how she ended up in this world is that she was helping a group of her friends as a team of fighting against an enemy. And this particular enemy had this machine that had contained some emeralds that was magical powered. And that the machine came unstable during the attack, and it somehow, well, the last she thought that she was teleported, and that she first believed that she just ended up in a different part of the Mobius. But now that makes no sense otherwise, because now it makes sense that she is not on Mobius, but in a different world. She believes, at least, that this teleportation had sent her to a different world in a different dimension. That was the only explanation that she could think of, she said to Yang. And even though Yang had never even heard of this type of machine or this type of technology or even like such things at all, but they would otherwise couldn't even otherwise been explained. Because Yang had been heard stories of there are 4 kingdoms in this world, but she had never heard of any such creatures or animals with such powers. And if there were such animals, they probably would have been undiscovered by this point. But she could immediately roll out Blaze as a Grimm, because Grimms are dark, evil spirits. And she is not that. She is actually a pure-hearted person. But then, Blaze asked her if it was possible for her to go. And Yang said that she was not a prisoner. She could go at any time. But there was just one thing that stopped Blaze from leaving. Since that she didn't have any way to go back to her own home, she was stuck. She was trapped in one unknown world. And only one connection they had in this world was Yang. And so Blaze asked Yang if it was possible for her to stay for a little while so that she could figure out what to do next. And Yang had no problem with that, so she let her to stay as long as she needed. And for the next couple of days, and after the next several weeks, Yang's and Blaze's relationship as friends was actually quite remarkably strong. They shared a lot of common sense. They shared a lot of common things together, like they liked to spin sparring and even liked to use powers and even to learn new techniques. But one day, when Yang was just home with Blaze, and suddenly the door knocked, and before Yang could even say anything, Blaze opened the door, and she heard a loud scream, and Yang ran up to the door, and it was actually her sister, Ruby, who was standing by the door. She thought that someone had taken over Yang's home. She wasn't prepared to attack Blaze, but Yang told her to calm down. This is her friend, and if she could just come into her place so they can talk more privately. And Ruby unluckily did that. They went in the living room space and just sit down and start talking. Ruby was informed all about the things about Blaze, where she's from, who she is, and why she can't go back home, and that she had decided to stay on Remnant with Yang as a roommate of some sort. But During this time, when only there was just Yang, Ruby, and Blaze talking, while Yang was in another room, Ruby asked Blaze what she thought about her older sister, if she felt any connection. Blaze asked what she meant by connection, and Ruby's like, romantic way, or something. And Blaze actually kind of blushed, and in fact, she did. Despite only been knowing each other for only a few weeks, she actually felt somehow attracted to Yang. So she decided just simply to confess to Yang at one point, but she just didn't know when. Ruby told her just to be brave and be honest about herself. After about a couple of days after she met Ruby, Blaze then confessed her feelings for Yang. But Yang said that she needed some time to think about this because this was just out suddenly. After about 2 days of thinking, Yang admitted that she even had feelings for Blaze because, first, this was just something new. Another thing about that is that Blaze just simply confessed to her. It was something that she took a little bit off guard. But she was just happy that he actually admitted feelings. Ruby was just happy to have the support. When Yang decided to introduce Blaze to some of her friends and her family, well, they were all surprised with certain of that part, but they eventually accepted it. Especially Yang's friend Blake Belladonna. She was very surprised, but she was very supportive because she could see how happy Yang were when she was around Blaze. But even so, it was just a good time. And one day, things would eventually change. Because one day, when they were in town, suddenly these people, they were robbers, or at least what they thought that they could have been, attacked the people in town. Of course, Ruby and Blaze, who was in public, used their powers to stop them. But in the process, Blaze was attacked. She was injured, but not serious though. Only had on a few scrapes and a minor concussion. So Yang took her home to take care of Blaze. But during this time, Blaze was just happy that Yang took care of her. If she didn't, she had no idea what would happen otherwise. But after a while, Ruby was happy to hear that this relationship between Yang and Blaze remained quite strong. In fact, after being dating for about 4 years, Blaze and Yang went out for the anniversary where Blaze proposed to Yang, and she said yes immediately. They decided to have just a small wedding for some friends and family, because there was no point to have such big. But they were just happy. Blake was asked to be Yang's maid of honor, and Ruby was asked to be Blaze's maid of honor, which both were happy about. And even at the wedding reception, afterwards ceremony, everyone could see how happy both Blaze and Yang were when they were dancing together, and how they would interact with each other. Even though Yang's friends and family was really surprised to see how this worked together. They even went to the coast just for about a week as their honeymoon together. After being married for about 2 years, Blaze and Yang wanted to start a family of their own. But unfortunately, there were a small problem. They couldn't have a child of their own. So, but Ruby and their friend Blake had made suggestion to an orphanage in town. So both actually went there and adopted a daughter, which was named Trina. Trina was really happy to have a new family, even though at first she was a little bit skeptical about her new mother, Blaze. But when she saw how gentle, how kind she opened up about it. The reasons why Trina was a little skeptical about her new mom, Blaze, it wasn't the fact that she was not human, but after she lost her own family only about a year earlier, she was just had herself shut in. She hadn't even opened up to anyone. But after a while, it took some time for both Blaze and Yang to open up to her, to reveal some of their own struggles in life, and there was only one other person that Trina was very much close to, and that was her new adopted aunt, Ruby Rose, which she was very close to. After this, Trina, she wanted to be something in her life one day. She wanted to be a healer or a doctor so that she could help other people in need. And after a while, she actually became as one. She was just happy that she had fulfilled her dream as a doctor. But even for Blaze, even for Blaze who had been living on Remnant for all this time, it still happened from time to time that she missed her own dimension, her old friends. But knowing that there was no way for her to go back, she had it quickly adapted to a new life, a new world. But having to share this new world with her new life, with her wife, Yang. Even Yang herself, never in her life believed that she would fall in love with someone like Blaze in the first place. But she was just happy because they didn't mind to be with the one they loved the most of all. After all, being with the one they love the most is the most promising at all things that exist. Even for Blaze though, even though that she do miss her old home, her old friends, knowing that there was no way for her to go back, had to be living a whole new world with new people, with a new wife, with a new family of her own. Knowing that eventually even her own old kingdom may have to find another heir to the throne. But even if she wanted to just go back, if she could, she would. But now, she had a new purpose, new life. Even for Yang, she was really happy to have found someone like Blaze though. Because before then, she wondered if she would have found her true love one day. But when she encountered Blaze the first time all those years ago, she was just curious. But she was happy to have made a friend, and later a partner for life. And this is how Blaze and Yang found their true love, got a big family together. The end.